go a bit.
I'd like clarity on my
keep
question.
the responses to around two minutes in the response, and we're going to keep the questions moving as well. So we want to move down the media panel.
That response, though? Can we make some response?
Sure. We'll give you 2 minutes on a response.
Thank you. First of all, I challenge the assertion that affirmative action has not worked. At the University of Michigan Law School in the 1960s, there were exactly 3 black graduates. There were no Latino graduates. Since 1970, since the advent of affirmative action, we've seen black lawyers, Latino lawyers, doctors, accountants, etc. And I think it's all very well and good to say that you're for equality, but the real truth of the matter is, and it's happened at the University of California and the University of California at Los Angeles, it has dramatically cut the enrollment of black and Latino students. And when you say equality, what you're really saying is a white equality, simply for white people. This would decimate the percentage, the number of professionals from minority backgrounds. And to what end? What I find amazing about the Michigan Civil Rights Initiative is that it says it's against preferences. But they're not against the preference of the kids, the white kids who go to better schools. They're not against the preferences of the white kids whose parents have all kinds of connections that they give to them. They're not against the preferences in the tests. The only preference they're against, so-called preference, is the only program that tries to do something about that. The real result of what they're talking about would absolutely result in the resegregation of the University of Michigan State, of every graduate school in the state, and many of the contracting and employment programs. This is a proposal which is not a civil rights initiative. It's a proposal to reinstitute segregation. And the only way they've been able to get it on the ballot is to lie about it, because most of the people of this state don't want to do that. They don't want to go back to the days when every lawyer, every doctor was white. And finally, with regard to women, the truth of the matter is we would not have women reporters. We would not have women working in all kinds of professions without affirmative action. And if we got rid of it, that would end relatively soon thereafter.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. And just to build a little bit forward here, could either Mr. Washington or one of the panelists that are against the proposed amendment speak to the issue of let's say, the reliance of affirmative action programs and how affirmative action programs could possibly negatively, even psychologically, affect those who are recipients into being into needing those programs in order to sustain. Could someone speak to that issue, please?
I'd like to speak to it on a personal level. I am a product of affirmative action. Affirmative action affects white women as much or more than it does minorities. In 1972, I was...
Could you speak directly into the microphone, please?
In 1972, I was accepted into an apprenticeship program in the skilled trades in General Motors. When I went into that trade, there were no women in any skilled trade in the entire auto industry since World War II. And it was affirmative action. It was a lawsuit that actually allowed for women even to go to work in production in the plant that I worked in, which was the Kalamazoo General Motors plant. So I don't think affirmative action is negative. I know that not only was I a product of affirmative action and have lived a very good, and I'd like to think successful life, but my children, 2 sons, white sons, were also the beneficiary of my success because of affirmative action.
Okay, we'll turn to the next media member.
Hi, my name is Burrow McLeish with Take Pride magazine. I got a question to maybe Fred or Mr. Washington. Since Title VI and Title VII of affirmative action you think does not work, and you Fred may want to discontinue it, why not bring it to the 21st century? Because the minority population in this country is growing. A different type of minority population, which may be Take, for instance, the gay population. Is that going to be added to minorities next? So the affirmative action needs to be continued, but it needs to be brought to the 21st century so it will work. So it won't be discriminatory towards even white race, because it is. Some of it is discriminatory, and I feel the same way. But we cannot dissolve it, because we need it. The minority population in this country is growing. We have foreigners coming over at alarming rates, taking high professional jobs. We have job sourcing out. We need to be able to build our country up through our educational system, and we need a diverse group to attend to the.
Who was the question directed at?
Anybody on the panel that would like to address that?
I'll take it. I think we all agree that diversity is important, and I think that most of us in the room would agree with that. The question is the method to achieving that diversity. I do agree with some affirmative action programs. I'm not up here saying that I'm against affirmative action. I'm against racial preference. I'm against race being the factor that's used. I'm very much for marketing, direct marketing to minority communities. I'm very much for, like the U of M policy that the president's doing there, where she's going out and giving speeches at schools to make it known that the University of Michigan is open to minorities. There are a lot of affirmative action programs that should be continued. The question is whether or not race should be used, or whether or not maybe means or financial resources, or what hurdles you had to overcome in order to get to where you are. The part that I oppose is just the racial preference part of it.
But if you look at Title VII, race was taken out of Title VII. And it just said gender. It was eliminated. Mm-hmm. So race is just put on the books just to maybe discourage people who are really that in tune with everything. Race is not the issue.
Can I respond to that question?
Sure.
I mean, I think race is the issue, because in this country we've had slavery because of race, we had segregation, and then we've had discrimination, and a comparable history among Latinos. And the fact is, you can't deal with those without specifically addressing the issue of race. I come from the city of Detroit. If you go to a school in Detroit and look at that school and then drive 3 miles north into a suburb, it's a different world. And that's because of race. It's not necessarily because people north of 8 Mile Road are richer. Some of them are not. But the issue is race, and we've got to address it. And we've got to address it specifically for blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, and certain groups from the Asian population, from poor South Vietnamese, et cetera. And I think we have to do that, or we will not have a diverse and equal society. I think the fact that the MCRI says, well, we're for affirmative action, but we're not for any affirmative action that works. If you consider the race, period, anyway,